So you're running a small or medium-sized business, and you're probably facing a huge choice. Jump into the hybrid cloud to grow and compete, or, well, risk getting left behind. But the big question is, how do you do it without throwing the doors wide open to a whole new world of danger? That's exactly what we're going to dive into. You see, the move to a hybrid cloud is this classic tug of war. On one side, you have this incredible promise, right? We're talking flexibility, speed, and real hard cost savings. But on the other side, there's the peril, a much more complex world with some really advanced security threats and, honestly, some pretty scary compliance risks. The whole point of this explainer is to show you how to get all of that promise with none of the peril. And hey, if you're thinking about this, you are definitely not alone. This isn't just for the big guys anymore. In 2024, a whopping 55%, that's over half, of all small and medium-sized businesses are jumping on board. The hybrid cloud is without a doubt the new standard for any business that wants to be agile. So what's really behind this huge shift? What's the big deal? Let's break down the opportunity and see exactly why so many businesses just like yours are making the move. Look, flexibility is great, but let's be real, money talks. SMBs that make a smart move to a hybrid model are seeing serious cost savings. We're talking an average of 15 to 25%. That's a significant chunk of change you can pour right back into growing your business. Okay, so the benefits are crystal clear. But how do you build a fortress around them? It really all comes down to a security playbook. And it's built on 3 foundational pillars. Let's walk through them one by one. All right, principle number 1. This one's pretty intuitive. It all starts at the front door. You have to be absolutely sure who is accessing your systems and, just as important, what they're allowed to do once they're inside. This whole concept is called Identity and Access Management, or IAM for short. And the absolute gold standard for controlling access today is a model called Zero Trust. And it really is a complete shift in how you think about security. The old way was trust but verify. Zero Trust works on a much safer motto. Never trust, always verify. Every single request, every single time, has to be proven. No exceptions. So how do you make this zero trust thing a reality? Well, think of it like layers of security for an employee. First, with multi-factor authentication, or MFA, you make sure they are who they say they are. Then, with role-based access, you make sure they only get the keys to the rooms they're supposed to be in, like, say, the finance department. And finally, with the principle of least privilege, you make sure that even inside that room, they can only touch the specific files they need to do their job and absolutely nothing else. Okay, let's talk about our second pillar. Once you've secured the front door, you have to protect what's inside. And in this digital world, your most valuable asset, your crown jewels, is your data. It doesn't really matter who gets in if your data itself is just unreadable gibberish to them. And the main tool we use for that is data encryption. The easiest way to think about it is scrambling your information into a secret code that only you have the key for. Now, it's absolutely crucial to do this in 2 states. When your data is just sitting on a server, we call that at rest, and when it's actively traveling across the network, we call that in transit. You know, a really strong data strategy has 3 parts. It has to start with classification. You've got to know the difference between your super sensitive financial records and, your public marketing brochures. Once you know what's critical, you encrypt it everywhere, whether it's sitting still or flying across the internet. But encrypted data is useless without the key, right? So the final, non-negotiable step is to lock down those keys using a secure, centralized system. All right, on to our third and final pillar, securing the pathways themselves. In a hybrid cloud, you've got data moving all over the place. Between your office, the cloud, maybe other locations, we have to make sure those digital highways are secure. A really powerful and modern way to do this is called microsegmentation. So instead of having one big, flat network where if an attacker gets in, they can just roam around freely, you break it down into dozens of tiny, isolated zones. That way, if a breach happens in one little area, it's contained right there. Kind of like slamming a watertight door shut on a ship. You get this really robust network security when all these tools work together. Microsegmentation creates those internal walls. Secure connections like VPNs act like armored tunnels between your office and the cloud. And then you've got your next-gen firewalls, which are like the super intelligent security guards at every gate, not just checking IDs, but actively watching for any suspicious behavior. So that's the playbook. And I get it. It can seem like a lot. But here's the good news. You don't have to do it all at once. Let's turn all this theory into a practical roadmap, something you can actually get started on today. The key here is to follow a logical 5-step plan. You have to start with step 1, an asset inventory. Because look, you can't protect what you don't even know you have, right? That knowledge then helps you with step 2, choosing the right cloud partner for your specific needs. With that partner in place, you can build out your security framework in step 3. Next, you put in monitoring tools to make sure that framework is actually working. And finally, and this is so important, you train your team, because technology is only ever as strong as the people who use it. Okay, now let's talk about a topic that can cause a lot of anxiety, but is absolutely essential to get right: compliance. In a hybrid world, the rules get complicated, and believe me, the stakes for getting them wrong are incredibly high. There are 3 main areas of compliance you really have to master. First is data sovereignty. Basically, that means that many laws say that a country's citizen data has to stay within its borders. Second is vendor risk management, which means you're on the hook for your cloud provider's security too. And finally, you have to follow the specific rules for your industry, whether that's GDPR for customer privacy, HIPAA in healthcare, or PCI DSS for payments. And if you're wondering why this is so critical, just look at this number. That is the potential fine for a single violation of Europe's GDPR privacy law. The takeaway here is pretty clear. Compliance isn't just a good idea, it's about protecting your business from a catastrophic financial risk. All right, we have covered a lot of ground. We've talked about the opportunity, the security playbook, the roadmap to get there, and the compliance risks. So let's bring it all together and boil it down into one final actionable checklist for your success. So this is your action plan. First, commit to truly understanding your risks. Then, build your entire defense on that never trust, always verify model of zero trust. Make strong identity management with multi-factor authentication your absolute first line of defense. Protect your most critical data with encryption, always. And finally, treat compliance and training not as a one-time project, but as a continuous, ongoing process. And that really brings us to the end. It all boils down to this single powerful question. Is your hybrid cloud going to be a strategic asset that fuels your company's growth? Or is it going to become a critical vulnerability that puts your entire business at risk? As we've seen today, that choice isn't left to chance. It's in the planning.